Hey everybody, what's up? Chad Wesley Smith here. Final installment of our Week in Review series. As this week, in just a few days, we head to Spokane, Washington for USAPL Raw Nationals. 1,200 some lifters, going to be a fun, exciting weekend. So all the ladies finish up their peaking workouts, beginning their taper. After we look at the highlights of their week, I'll kind of go over why their weeks look different and what our considerations are for the taper, the deload going into the competition, so we can best set them up for success at the meet. And that's a mix of keeping fitness as high as possible while decaying fatigue. Of course, when you think of decaying fatigue, you think of a lack of training or very low volume training, but we also have to make sure that their technique is as refined as possible for the day that it matters, as well as bringing the right mental approach to competition. So let's get into this last week of training, and then we'll talk a little bit about that. All right, so jumping into this, the final week of peaking, Marisa works up to a pretty heavy deadlift here. Not actually her heaviest deadlift of the competition, of training, that was 2 weeks ago. But here's 380. You can see it's moving slow, kind of rough. But this would be the week where you expect fatigue to be really high. You've had several heavy weeks of training, of high intensity, high percentage training, adding up on top of each other. So for her to handle that pretty well is a good sign. Unfortunately, she did end up tweaking her back a little bit on a back down set, so we had to deal with that throughout the week. But she's looking okay. Here's Maddy again. 145, a weight she's done now several times, a little bit more than it. Moving kind of slow, but as we expect, fatigue is high. Joanne's lighter squat day of the week. I had sort of restructured Joanne's taper week, and we'll talk about some of those considerations. But even though her and Maddy same weight class, Joanne's been training about as long as Maddy's been alive, so she's going to require a bit longer taper to be able to hold her, or to be able to decay fitness in time for the competition. So just sort of moderate work there in the deadlift, trying to keep technique sharp. Here's Maddy's primary bench day of the week. She ended up actually missing 97.5 kilos prior to that 90 kilo double. Frustrating, but she still has put about 12.5 kilos on her bench over the last 10 or so weeks, so I guess you can't be too greedy. Great bench press there for Joanne, setting up well to bench a PR at the meet. Moving on to Wednesday, this is Kristen's heaviest bench day of the whole train cycle, and things are really coming together just as we'd hoped and planned. With her not doing any competition bench pressing for like 6 weeks after her last meet. This is only her 3rd week back competition pressing, and that's a lifetime PR of 110 kilos. So as I mentioned in previous videos, the bench, particularly for female lifters, doesn't take very long to peak. It can kind of come together sort of last minute, and that's what's happening there. Strong 95 from Marisa. That weight's become super automatic for her. And here's Maddy with her final primary deadlift day. Did just a bunch of singles here at 135 kilos, focusing on great starting position, bringing the hips early to lockout. As I mentioned, Joanne had a bit different than her normal weekly structure. If you've been following along, she would have typically trained Monday through Wednesday and then Friday and Saturday. So this squat workout would normally be on Friday, but we moved it up to Thursday to allow her a little bit more time to decay fatigue going into the meet. That's a body weight PR for her, 137.5 kilos, 303 pounds. She did a really good job of staying tight into the hole with that, allowing her to grind through that sticking point on the way up, much better than what she did when she was down here a couple weeks ago in Southern California, where she was back to her dive bombing type of style. This is just a walkout and hold. Joanne tends to get pretty big carryover from training to competition through the peaking effect and adrenaline and everything. So I wanted to, so she's likely going to squat a weight significantly heavier in the meet than what she did in training, but I still want to give her a chance to feel some heavy weight. So that's 155 kilos, not too much heavier than what we'll look to do at the meet, maybe 5%, just so she can feel on her back, breathing as if she's getting ready to start the lift. As I mentioned earlier, Marisa tweaked her back a little bit on Monday. So definitely some panic with that throughout the week, but she's been really diligent about doing her breathing drills from Dr. Quinn, about getting soft tissue therapy, all that good stuff, and was back on track with a 145 kilo squat there on Friday. We just had to be a bit more strategic, working up with smaller jumps to make sure we didn't jump past where she was feeling good. Then you saw a 150 kilo lifetime PR squat for Maddy Forberg in there, smooth looking lift. And Joanne's last bench workout, again, typically this would be on Saturday for Joanne, but we're moving it up a little bit so she can decay fatigue in time for competition. Very strong 80, good double with the first rep paused, 85 off the boards. And then last bench workouts here for Maddy, 92.5 kilos. Probably a likely second attempt for, the women, bench press for women is like 1-2 kilos can make such a big difference that even though that 92.5 is really flying, that'll be a 10 kilo meet PR for her. And I think anyone who takes a 10 kilo PR for their second attempt is excited about that. Kristen just getting some reps in, keeping fitness high. All right, so we're going to talk about some of this taper design, and I'll take a picture of this whole thing and put it at the end so you can definitely read all of it. But what we're going to take into account is age, strength, and size of the lifter. So we have Marisa, 42 years old. She's small, 5 feet tall, 52 kilo class, the lightest of the lifters, but also the relative, the highest qualified as a lifter and second in like absolute strength. Then Maddy is the youngest, only 21, only been lifting for about 2 years. Also short, about the same height as Marisa, a little bit heavier. Joanne, also a 57 kilo competitor like Maddy, but Joanne's 48. She's been training for over a decade. Pretty strong in all the lifts, the deadlift particularly. And then finally, Kristen is almost 29, and the absolute strongest, and the absolute weights are going to take a bit longer to recover from. So as we're looking at their schedule here for the whole week, I realize this is remarkably professional setup here. We've got this past Friday all the way to next Saturday when Kristen will compete. All the other ladies are competing this Thursday where the X is. So you can see on Friday for Marisa, she took a heavy squat, going to be pretty fatiguing, just technique deadlift work, and that's her last really significant workout. Maddy has still a pretty heavy bench press workout that you saw where she did 92.5 kilos on that Saturday. So her taper is a little bit shorter than Marissa's. Maybe 1 day shorter, 1 day and plus about 6 hours, because Marisa competes at night and they compete in the afternoon. And that's significant because Marisa is going to decay fatigue a little bit slower than Maddy. She's also going to have probably a bit more fatigue to decay because she's handling pretty comparable weights, but particularly heavier in the deadlift, which is the most fatiguing of the exercises. But if we were to look at Joanne, she took her, Joanne down here has heavy bench press on Friday, and she had her heavy squat on Thursday. So because Joanne is a little bit older, she's gonna decay that fatigue a little bit slower, and so she gets 1 extra day in her taper. So these are very subtle changes, but very significant as well. As we look at these other days here, like Sunday, so that says technique squat, moderate bench press, technique deadlift. In the bench press particularly, for all the lifters, particularly female lifters, keep this in mind, that because females aren't as muscular as a similarly qualified male counterpart in the upper body, they're gonna lose fitness faster. So you can and should keep a bit more bench press volume in a little bit longer for them. So be mindful of that. That's why, why many of these boxes are gonna say moderate bench press while they don't say that for the squat. Now, a couple times where it does say it for the squat, like let's say Tuesday's workout here for Marisa. So when she's 2 days out, it does say moderate squat. That's going to be up to like about a last warm up. And that's a little bit different for her. She's going to go a little bit heavier here than she typically would because she's dealing with that back injury. Last week we did a little bit less squatting volume and intensity last week than we typically would. So we got to keep it a little bit heavier, you know, maybe 5-10 kilos heavier on that single than she typically would for that workout, and maybe one more back down set to make sure she can maintain fitness into the competition. And then as we get closer to competition here, you know, so Maddy has only one real taper workout, and then this very light is like 60 to 70 kilos, just kind of moving around. She has the shortest taper with only one significant workout in it. Marisa has 2, Joanne has 2, and Kristen is going to have 2 plus the very light workout as she competes on Saturday. She's a 72 kilo class lifter, so you know, more muscle mass for her to decay more fatigue from. You know, Kristen's is a little bit atypical of what she would normally do because she's been dealing with this glute issue in the that's really been restricting her squat training. Luckily, she's a fantastic squatter already. Her bench and deadlift has still been going great, but that requires some modification. So again, I'll put up just a steady screenshot of this so you can have a look at that. And you know, that's the training. These women have worked very hard for nationals this upcoming weekend. I'm excited to be up there, coach them, hit some PRs, you know, come away with some medals, maybe some world team spots, and have a good time. So thank you for watching this week in review series. If you haven't watched the previous weeks, make sure you go back and do that, and you can really get an idea of the structure of their training, the strategies that we are using. If you're at nationals, come say hi, let's take a picture, you know, whatever stuff like that. If you're interested in online coaching, check out juggernautcoaching.com. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with a friend. Thanks for watching.